like this number. Don't you know he's listening? The 13. He's here.
You have entered the 13, a place where real stories about music, touring, and the beyond are told. Music does something to us. We all experience it in our own way. It can affect our senses, transport us through time, and release emotions. On this podcast, we will talk with people about the power of music and the beyond. What does the beyond mean? Let's find out together. Turn on your metronomes because this time is about to be tracked. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the 13. I'm your host, Ryan 13, and on today's show, we have Ben Carroll. And I could tell you a little bit about him, but I'm going to let Ben tell you a little bit about him. Hey, Ben, how you doing?
Good. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, man. Just enjoying this rainy weather down here in South Texas, waiting for a cold front, air quotes, cold front to come through. But it'll be cooler than 100 degrees, so I'm stoked and ready to go. So for our audience that may or may not know a little bit about you, would you just drop us a few clues?
Sure. I am a musician for many years. In my early 20s, I was in a band called Ra, and I technically still am in my mid 40s. And
nice.
we had a good little run of it, and still are releasing albums because we released one. What year is it? 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I don't know. It all blends together now. And I've been doing that for many years, but do lots of other things these days. I do a lot of ambient music and sound healing as well. And life is an adventure. These days I'm in Georgia, so I'm not too far from you. But moved down here about a year ago from Maine and lived all over the place, New York, LA before that. So
awesome. Georgia, man. I always think I can't think of the name of the club. I'll think of it and you'll be like, oh yeah, I've been there.
The Tabernacle?
Probably it. That's it. That's probably it.
That one sticks in my, I don't know why. That one sticks in my, that's like the weirdest name ever. That's the club that sticks in my head.
I mean, yeah, dude. I think I totally remember that one. I think I remember the load-in being really weird too.
But I don't remember that. I only remember the name.
Okay, cool. One of the things I wanted to start off with was talk about how we met. So I just want to bring this up because it's funny to me. I brought it up on another show. We met on a show called Expanding Reality over there with Brandon Thomas. You guys go check that out. And we were supposed to do a show, but the internet wasn't working super well for the host. So me and Ben and another guest were just able to sit back and talk. And I'm just like nervous because I don't know anybody. And I'm sitting here name dropping stuff. Like I toured with King's X, I toured with Skid Row, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there looking at Ben like, this dude looks familiar. Why does he look so familiar? It's because he's in the band Raw. That is a guitar player. And I'd seen him play live several times. When I like later when we met up on the show again, I was like, hey man, sorry, like I'm that douchebag dropping names over here. But one of the things I did want to talk about that was one of the first times I saw you in Raw was when you guys were on tour with The Dreaming and El Nino, and you guys played a place called the Scout Bar in Houston. And I think I had heard of you guys before. Like I had heard a couple of songs and stuff, but when I saw you live, I like went home and I told my buddy Matt, I was like, okay, here we go. Here's the CDs. These are the things we need to listen to now. And what was it like touring in that particular tour? Because this podcast, we do talk about touring and tour stories. Was that fun? Did y'all all tour together on like the same bus? Did y'all have separate vans?
We all had our own buses. Well, the Dreaming were in a van. But then, that was actually a pretty big tour. There was 4 buses and a truck.
Was it Godhead on there? Was it Godhead?
Yeah, Godhead was on there as well. It was El Nino, us, Godhead, and the Dreaming. Yeah, and that was 2006, I believe.
Yeah, time flies.
And that was a good tour in the middle of like almost a decade of touring with Ra. So it's a little hazy. But, but I remember that tour because we were all kind of courting the same exact label, and that was the label to put it on. Cement Shoes was the name of the label, and it was aptly named because they totally sank.
I get it though. Right on. Do you have any crazy stories from that? Like, did you guys, like, how when you go on tour, you get on your bus, you end up having tour rituals. Certain people do certain things after a show, like somebody will go to the back. Maybe a couple people go to the back. Wow, chamber, not chamber,
Back lounge.
back lounge, and hang out. Some people go right to their bunk and read. Some people stay up front and party. Did you guys have any like specific crazy rituals like that? Did you play cards afterwards, or you know?
Let me see. Jaeger and Crown, I think.
That's the one.
Those were our after and before show. Well, Crown was always after. I don't think it was before. Jaeger was before and after. Yeah, that was a little bit of crazy period of time. So yeah, we generally do the show and then whatever debauchery that came up till about 4 a.m. till the bus rolled, and then sleep till you make it to the next city.
That's right. Did you guys have your own techs, or were you setting up your own stuff?
Oh, we had our own techs. Yeah,
of course you did. Yeah. Yeah, had to. That's why it was so much easier. See, I was a tech for King's X for a long time. It was still a lot of fun because you'd stay up and party with the band. The problem was
that's a hard gig. The problem was you're getting out of your bunk like 4 hours before the band wakes up.
Right. And you're like trying to be quiet.
Yeah. Some of those load ins at like 1. Some of them when you're like doing a festival, load ins at like 8 a.m. or 7 a.m.
Yeah. We played a festival in Mount Clemens, Michigan. And it was like, because it was King's X, they had all of these like bands that like King's X didn't really fit in with, but they kind of did because King's X came in at that like end of hair metal, beginning of grunge thing. Mm-hmm. So they'd be like Knight Rider would be there, and like we're setting up for all this festival. Trickster was there. I mean, like there's a whole bunch of bands.
Did you know that PJ Farley from Trickster is the bass player from Raw as well?
I did not know that.
Yep. PJ Farley from Trickster is the bass player from Raw and now also the bass player from Fozzy.
Fozzy, no way. That's so cool. Yeah, I haven't seen Fozzy live yet.
Andy's always playing with Eric Martin.
Okay.
Eric, yeah, Mr. Big.
Yeah, Mr. Big.
We're always doing shows together.
Fuck.
But yeah, PJ's band whore. But yeah, he's been in Raw since very, very early 2003. We
Mr. Big
on the road.
I had Billy Sheehan on the show not too long ago. I said his name wrong though. I was like, welcome to the show, Billy Sheehan. He was like, it's Sheehan. And I was like, oh, crap. I messed this up right at the beginning. But it's spelled Sheehan.
My 14-year-old self would have freaked out. Eat him and smile.
Yeah, dude. I love that album.
There's a lot more than that, but that's the one for me that I absolutely loved that album back in the day.
That guy was he was super nice and super polite. He was like on my 3rd or 4th episode ever. And so I was like, more new than this is only episode like 44 or something, 43 or something like that. So it's still new, but he was gracious, but I made his eyes roll a couple of times, which was pretty funny. He was like, I was in a band. It was pretty, our band's pretty clean living. And I was talking about Mike Portnoy, a story where Mike Portnoy runs backstage. I'm in King's X dressing room. He flings the door open. He's like, where's Doug? I was like, he's in the shower. He was like, tell him I need some weed. And then he left. and then that was right after Billy Sheehan said, yeah, all the bands I've been in have been pretty clean. It's like, well, whoops.
Weed's clean.
I think so too. Dude, that's so much fun. So one of the things that I would do before I would do any shows was Jaeger and Budweiser when in my 20s, when you could handle it. And that was my pre-show thing before I jump on the bass, be like, okay, I got to have shot of Jaeger, drink a beer, and then another beer for stage. And then I could play the whole show and everything would be fine. But then after the show, it was like, you're already pre-lit to go have fun and do stuff. But I never had at my band, I never had to have techs. We were our own techs. So same thing, whether it was for King's X or whatever, somebody's driving all night. Somebody's got to get to the gig. Somebody's unloading early. And then somehow in your 20s, you can just keep doing this night after night. And it's
well, that's so if you want to talk about that ritual, I guess in 2002, when Raw first hit, I was really broke before then because all my life and everything went towards music and it didn't pay anything up until that point. So I was a super lightweight. So I'd have like one beer before the show. But as time went on, as the tour goes on, that goes to like a few beers and a couple shots. And that's basically what it grew to. But, as years go on, you that pre-store ritual goes, and the Jaeger was necessary. I remember one time, and this is a I don't think this was, I don't know what tour this was on. It's all blurry, but I remember one time we needed the Jaeger so bad and we didn't have any. We're like, where's the Jaeger? So PJ's like, oh yeah, there's a bottle of Jaeger in the trailer. So we go in the trailer, open up the cooler, which is like, I think we're in Texas or somewhere in the South. So the cooler's like full of hot water, and there's like a mayonnaise jar that had leaked. So we have this hot Jaeger covered in warm mayonnaise, and we're pulling swigs off that. That was a high point of my writing.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny, dude. There's stuff like that with there's so many times when stuff like that happened in Europe when we had one of the double-decker buses over there, but it had a fridge, but it was a tiny fridge, but there was an ice box kind of thing off to the side. And it was all mostly an American crew, but some Germans were on there too. But like nobody kept up with it, but people were stuffing bologna and things in there. After a few days in Germany in like, I don't know, August, it still gets pretty hot there. And that box had melted and somebody opened it up and we couldn't get the bus to stop stinking for the next 3 weeks. There's just no way. There's no amount of bleach that could get rid of that smell. Right on, man, dude. This is so great. So your journey is taking you, you're still in that band. That's going to be that was one of my questions. You got new music coming out or anything? You guys just still play whenever?
Last time I talked to the Hodge like a month ago, he was talking about tracking a couple new songs. No new album, but maybe some single type things. But yeah, cool. we released an album in 2020 or 2021. I can't even remember. Intercorrupted, and I think that was our best album to date.
Right on, man.
I think we nailed it with that album. Everybody,
I heard a couple songs off of it,
and we all got to shine on that album in our own way. Because it's raw. So there's poppy, the little bit of poppy style songs on there as well, but there's also some heavy songs. And
in raw, like in some of the and maybe in this one too, but like how do I pose this question? So like in your sound healing journey, when you use everything, you use the whole, we're going to get into the gear part of that too, but you use the bowls, you use a keyboard, you use microphones, you probably use all kinds of stuff. But in the raw albums, when you hear some of the more, I don't know, Egyptian sounding vocals, is that you or is that somebody else?
That's Sahaj.
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah.
You do that stuff really good too.
What's that?
I said you do that type of stuff pretty cool too.
I can sing all right, but Sahaj, in my opinion, and maybe I'm biased, but I don't even think so. He's one of the best vocalists in rock in the past 20 years from that era, and he's still got his voice. He's still killing it.
Yeah, right on. And that's a thing. That's a thing that it goes after some time. Doug from King's X, he's having the other two guys sing more on they just released a new album, and Doug's 73, and so he's like, I can't hit that. Yeah, like that crazy stuff, the stuff that he could hit. He's like, I got to take a step back from it. I mean, but that's really good that his voice is still in control.
Yeah, he's still got it. And to be honest, I always sing background in raw, but just the easy stuff, because a lot of the stuff I'm playing on guitar is complicated enough that it's a pain in the ass to sing and play. I tried as I got to be a better vocalist. I tried, but it got to be the point where I'd like have to relearn all the raw songs in that way. And I was like, wow, we don't tour enough for that.
Yeah, I was never very good. I could do backups. That's probably all you really wanted. A quick hey or a yeah or something from me, because I would lose. I was just never good at it. I never practiced it enough. I would lose concentration on where I was. We'd be over here and I'd still be over here. And you could tell. One of the things I wanted to talk about is your transition or your inclusion of the new sound healing journey, and like what led you to that, and what was something, what was the reason that even occurred in the first place?
It was totally by accident, completely by accident. So Ross stopped touring. The first time we stopped touring was in like 2000, the end of 2009 or something like that. And I moved up to Maine, and at the time I also started working with a vocal coach, or I had been for a little while already. Are you familiar with Jamie Vandera?
Why does that sound so familiar?
because he's like everybody's vocal coach.
Okay, well then that's what it
James
is.
Labrie to like so many people. It seems like every band now uses Jamie because he's definitely made a name for himself. But he's been a good friend of mine for years. He used to always come to the Raw shows, and him and I really connected. We've always kept in touch, and we actually launched a company together called. At first, it was Rock Doctors, and then Rock Source 360. In 2009 and 10 and 11 it was live, maybe started in 2008, and we had all different kinds of people teaching on there, from the guys from Shadows Fall, and
Wow.
David Ellison was on there, and Mangini was on there, Mike Mangini,
Nice.
and a ton of people, and it was such a great idea. But in 2009 nobody wanted to do online lessons.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was
That's when I
2009.
started. That's when I started teaching online. But at that same time, Ra wasn't touring, and I was like, I was talking to Jamie, and I was like, I think I want to, start another band. Do you have any students that are like really good? Because I need to find a singer. And he's like, I'm going to teach you how to sing. And I was like, yeah, sure, dude.
You're like, okay, yeah, that'll
So
work.
I started working with him, and started using my voice. And I did start a band called the Hollow Glow that released a few albums, where we were a trio. I sang and played guitar, and we had bass and drums, and that was cool. But it was just basically like facing fears and having fun, because I was mortified of being a lead singer. But that kind of like opened up, um, I don't know, starting to use my voice in that way, like started to change me a little bit. Also, in that time, I kind of completely stopped drinking because the only time I ever drank was when I was touring. You
Yeah.
know, I would literally only drink for work. If I had a day off, I wouldn't drink. it was like
Well,
it
yeah.
was like part of my job. But
Interesting. That's cool. Well,
I
that's good.
totally, yeah, I totally stopped drinking, and when I moved to Maine and started practicing meditation and just getting out into the woods a lot, and I found myself at a like a sound healing event with singing bowls sometime. I think it was in 2012, and I was just like, I was instantly totally captivated by the singing bowl. I was like, what the hell is making that sound?
Yeah.
Because the first time I actually heard them, it wasn't actually like at an event that I went to for the singing bowls. Someone was playing the bowls as we were moving into a small auditorium for some kind of thing, and it was just like the sound of the singing bowl just like permeated the whole room. It was so potent, and I was like totally drawn to them. I had to go and check it out and ask what they were. And shortly after that, like probably within less than a month, I went to um, an event that was just singing bowls that the same person was putting on. Excuse me. And yeah, I just instantly loved the bowls. There was something about them that is so powerful, just able to shut down your brain and just get totally relaxed, and so much more than that. But I was always curious what it would be like to sing with singing bowls.
Yeah.
Uh, and I went to some more events over the years, but in 2014 I decided to get a bowl and bring it home and sing with it and see what it would be like, and it was cool. So like a couple weeks later I had 8 more. And yeah, I never intended on doing it for anybody. It was just like became my own practice. I would do it every morning for 20 minutes to 3 hours sometimes, because if I'm not paying attention to the time, like 3 hours can go by and it'll feel like 20 to 30 minutes.
Wow.
And people started telling me that I should do sound healing, and I was like, I don't see it. I just, I'm just doing it for myself.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until 2016 that so after Ra and during Ra and before Ra, I've always taught guitar. But after Ra, I was literally teaching 2 days a week from 2009 when I launched Rock Source 360 with Jamie and a couple other people, to today. I've always taught guitar 2 days a week, and all of a sudden, at one point in the fall of 2016, all of my lessons dried up. Like and I have a lot of my students stick with me for years. So it was
Right.
really, really weird the way it all kind of happened at once. Very, um, definitely feeling like I was pushed in retrospect, pushed by the universe into doing sound healing because I was being freaking stubborn. They all dried up at once. And I had been doing some like traditional sound bath kind of sound healing stuff where I was just doing a gig here and there where I'd go and just play the bowls and keep my mouth shut. But I kept getting offers to do more gigs, and I had no students at that point. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna actually try this and see what it's like. So I ended up trying to see what it would be like actually singing with the bowls, to do it in the way that I was doing it at home, is what I mean. Um, so I ended up booking, I think, 3 events over the course of a couple weeks, just because I knew if I only did it once and it sucked, I would never do it again. So I gave myself a good shot. And I I did them all and they went phenomenally well. And one of those was like a wellness expo kind of thing where they have like crystal vendors and all that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
from that, I was offered a bunch of other gigs from people that were vendors there. And it literally became what I was doing for a living, my main source of income, which I suppose wasn't that hard to do at that time. But in a matter of like a month, and I had in like 3 months, I had a full schedule, and
Wow.
it just kept building. And from 2016 to right up until 2020, when it was impossible to do it, I was doing like 8 to 10, sometimes 12 sound healing events per month, and traveling all over New England and down the coast, because that was when I was living in Maine at the time. But I would
Yeah.
go down the coast into Virginia and Asheville, North Carolina, and all that stuff.
Dude, that's
So yeah, and
freaking
I
awesome.
never meant to do it. It was a complete accident.
I think that sometimes that's the best things in life. Like
Yeah,
things come to you, or the ones that, like, I don't know if you believe in manifesting and stuff. Like sometimes the ones that you manifest are really cool too. Because I didn't I didn't really ever necessarily believe in manifesting or anything like that, but I always knew in my head I was going to be in a band. I was going to go on tour. I knew it was going to happen. I just knew it, and it happened. Or like
yeah,
then I knew I was going to get the job I currently have now, and it happened. I don't know. It's very life is super interesting, and I'm still trying to figure it all out. But
yep.
speaking of the sound healing stuff, speaking of the no drinking thing, I'm on the sober October bandwagon as we speak. So I'm not drinking myself either, at least for now. And I'm like, what? What do I do? Like,
That was
I
me in
do.
2009 when I first quit drinking.
You're like, well, what do I do now? So like, I'm cool. I have the podcast. Cool. That's awesome. It's one of my favorite hobbies and things to do. And cool. I have work. That's great. And cool. I play guitar and stuff. But then it's like, all right, now where am I going? And I was wondering how sound healing might give, or meditation or anything like that might give me some type of like something, because I feel like something's missing, and the thing that's missing is just at the end of the day cracking a beer or two and watching YouTube. And so since I'm not going to do that as much anymore, oh well, no beer for sure. And I was like, I wonder how, when you go out and you teach people or show people the sound healing things, I've heard your meditation ones, which are fantastic, by the way. Like, and
Thank you.
you have a 90-minute one that just came out not too long ago. I haven't heard yet, but I'm interested in.
I do 2 90-minute events per month. So
Okay, well, I just saw it pop up in my feed, and I was like, wow, 90 minutes. Okay, sweet. But what do you think? What would you suggest for somebody just starting off on the sober train, as far as like something to do? Would the sound healing would meditation work there, or
yeah, follow follow whatever interests you.
yeah,
That's where it led me, because I quit drinking for the first time in 2009. I went 9 months straight without drinking, and then I would have a couple drinks every now and then until in 2012, I it was actually New Year's Eve 2012. I had a sip of champagne, and I just know that was the last time I had a drink for
yeah,
7 whole years without a drop of alcohol. And then we did Shiprocked with Ra in very early 2020. And I was in Mexico, and I had a couple of margaritas, and that was freaking amazing. No regrets.
no
Um,
regrets.
but yeah, I mean, it was really weird at first going out, going to see shows, and like I would like end up drinking like 5 waters just out of like needing a nervous habit. Like if you quit
Yeah,
smoking and you don't know what to do with your hand, like
right.
I go out to a show and I get home and I'd have to pee all night.
Yeah.
I go and drink like 5 waters.
I went and saw Stabbing Westward the other day, and well, I guess it's been 6 months or so now, but I went and saw them, and I knew I had to drive myself to the Scout Bar, so same place y'all played. Drove, it was an hour away. I knew I had to drive back, and I remember being there like, how do you enjoy a show without alcohol? This is weird because I'm normally like being up there and rocking, but then I started thinking about it. I was like, okay, when you were a kid, you didn't have alcohol and you went to all these shows. And I was like, well, just it's one of your favorite bands. Go up there and have fun. And I was like, oh my god, I'm having fun.
It is weird at first because for me it was totally a crutch because I'm a bit of an introvert and I'm happy about it. I have no regrets whatsoever. But to go out and get subjected to meet and greets and meeting hundreds of people every night and being in front of thousands of people, it was way easier with a buzz on. So when I stopped drinking, it was like, it was challenging. Like that was like my social crutch. I had to get used to doing things sober, like going to shows or even just like going out with people, going on a date, whatever, because that was my my social lubrication.
I think that's a good point. Like, because every time I'd ever played a show, and it goes back to a Dimebag quote or something, like Dimebag was always like, well, before I get out there, huge play in front of in an arena full of people, and he's been doing it for years. And he's still like, I gotta have my drink or whatever before he goes out there. And I remembered thinking in my head, I was like, oh yeah, that'll make this easier. And if I go back and watch some of the shows where I was a little tipsy, I was fantastic. And then like maybe I mean, and like you're like, man, I mean, not drunk shows, but the ones where you just have just enough buzz to where you're like, I'm gonna jump off that SVT tonight. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. And that was what I was talking about the starts off with one beer and then eventually it's like, I have 3 beers and 3 shots before I go on stage to get to that same point.
Right.
after years and years of touring. But yeah. So I did Ra like stopped touring sometime in 2009 and didn't tour again until 2014. And 2014 I did my first ever sober tour.
Okay.
And that was so fucking boring.
was that like, okay, show's over, go to your bunk, or like sit there and watch the other dudes have fun, or like how?
Yeah, it's just because when you realize when you're sober, you're just kind of trapped on a tube.
Yeah,
basically what a tour bus is. You're trapped on a tube, and you're kind of tethered to that. You can only go so far. Right. Yeah, it was
front lounge, back lounge, bunk.
Yeah,
maybe you have a shower if you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky. But yeah, and since then I've always toured sober.
Well, cool. Yeah. But now you got to figure it out though. Now you know what you like to do. So like the guys that I would tour with when they were sober, they had specific things. They're like in the back lounge playing video games or playing cards up front or doing whatever. And then they would always, the people that were partying, it would always rotate. Either you're in the front lounge or you're in the back lounge. And then some people, when people would go sober, it was it's like sober tour. And you're like, fuck, especially for the roadies, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, J-Rab, let's go to the bar. And we'd be at the bar until it was bus calls at 3 a.m. and you're like, okay, shh, fucking around with your keys in the tour bus, trying to get it open and trying to get in crawl in your bunk. My bunk was always on the top. So I'm putting my foot in the drummer's, thing to try to get up there. And you know what your feet smell like after you've been on tour. They don't smell that great. You know what I mean? And so kind of like not the best. That bunk environment, depending on what kind of tour bus you have, can be really funky.
Yeah, it can smell a lot like feet and some other stuff.
Okay, so since I like talking about gear and we've been talking about touring a little bit, I want to talk about specifically your sound setup with the bowls and everything. Because every time I've seen it a little bit different. I've seen you with keyboards. I've seen you with like a million bowls. I've seen you with some chimes and stuff. And what's your main go-to? Because obviously your setup grow like Neil Peart's drum set, I'm sure, like it could get bigger and bigger or smaller, but like what's your main go-to and why?
Well, so for in-person events, so all the way up until 2020, all my events were in person. I didn't do anything online. I don't use any gear at all. No microphone, no amplification, just the singing bowls, solfeggio tubes, tincture cymbals, and voice, and whatever else. Sometimes some drums and chimes. But when the world shut down, I had been wanting to do something online for probably years at that point, just to incorporate other elements. And I never did that in person because I already had enough stuff to lug around.
Right.
More out of laziness. So yeah, when I started doing online events in the spring of 2020, I immediately knew I wanted binaural beats, because I'd always wanted that in my events. So I ended up buying and I wish I could move my camera over there, but that one's locked in place.
Yeah.
I bought like a mixing board. So I put together binaural beats, and I bought a couple keyboards at the same time. Or I started with just keyboards I had, a couple keyboards that I had, and quickly replaced those. And yeah, these days I'm running, in my main setup, I'm running that mixing board, 1, 2, 3, 4 keyboards, one of the beat pad things.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
what kind of keyboards are they? Like
just
MIDI? Are they just MIDI controllers? Or are they
just MIDI controllers?
Okay,
yeah.
right on. Like
some
a Kai or whatever.
Yeah, some Arturia and Nectar. I think I have a couple of each over there.
Right on.
Yeah, I have one over here too that's the same. But yeah, I have like 3 little ones just because I have so many bowls. I have to figure out where to put them. Then I have a big one on the side.
You got this cute little one right here. This little
Kai. I have one that size, but it's by Nectar, that sits right in front of me.
Okay.
In back of my front bowl.
They're handy as fuck. And like when you get really used to being able to switch switch where you're at. Cause that was the thing that threw me off at first, because all the keyboards I had ever had were full size. And then you get this little tiny chunk. And then you realize, well, all I got to do is press this button or that button.
The cord doesn't reach.
Yeah, I pulled mine out. Oh, yep, there it is. I've seen those before. I've never.
I have 2 of those. I love them.
Okay, right on. Nectar, is that what it's called?
Yeah, that one's that's not my smallest one. That's the Arturia Micro Lab.
I'm always into this stuff.
I have 2 of those. One that lives on the desk, and one that's hardwired over on the other side. And then I have that's a 2-octave keyboard, and then I have a 2.5-octave keyboard over there as well. I wish I could move my camera. And then a little one like you have that's made by Nectar that just like tucks up in front of my seat. And then I have a 64 or whatever key.
Oh, cool.
It's a Nectar.
Yeah, right.
Panorama. I don't remember, something like that.
So when you're doing your stuff that is for the internet, and like when you're going through your microphone and stuff, like obviously you got a lot of reverb in there, maybe a little bit.
And I'm using a Townsend Sphere for the microphone on that setup, if you're familiar with that. Great. It's set up in stereo, so that I actually, you can hear like the spatial setup of the bowls, and if I move around, because the online events are completely designed for headphones. With binaural beats, you kind of need headphones, and then I have stereo wideners and all the pads, so they're kind of pushed off to the side, so the voice can kind of sit in the middle, and the bowls can kind of fill it in, and the whole thing is designed for headphones.
Dude, I love that. That is cool.
On my vocal chain, my microphone chain, because I only have one microphone for the bowls and the voice, is pretty complicated. I actually I released an album in 2019, October of 2019, called Becoming Light, which grew out of the sound healing stuff, and which the album did really well. Super grateful that debuted at number 6 on the New Age Billboard chart and got airplay all over the world. But that's a side note.
That's awesome.
Because when I went to have to set up my vocal chain for the online stuff, what I did was I took one of those tracks, opened it up, deleted where I didn't need it, and kind of built my vocal chain out of that. So I have
Oh, cool.
a few different reverbs and a few different EQs and compressors and a little bit of delay and just a whole bunch of stuff. And that was how I started. And from there, I fine tuned it many, many, many times over the years to grow it.
So you end up like what I do for the podcast is I've been working on it, but I like have my go-tos like, okay, he was using a decent mic. Cool. We're going to drop this in it. And oh yeah, that actually kind of works. And you just barely tweak the EQ over here and boom, you're done. Oh, we're going to do a high pass because his audio was really muffy or something. And we're going to pick it back up, but it's easy. You can just drop it in there. So you're saying that's kind of like you kind of have stuff that you've been tweaking that you can literally just drop in and
like I literally, if from one event to the next, I run my live streaming events through Cubase.
Yeah. Okay.
And from one event to the next, I usually don't tweak a lot. I'll sit down some days. I really feel like I need to do this or that, and I'll sit down and I'll like redo a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes I change out what reverbs I'm using or things like that. But usually for my live events, all I do is just take the event I was at last time, duplicate it, and delete everything and start over. Delete all the audio tracks that I recorded because I always record. Right. I always record my live streams as well.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. That's fucking cool.
So yeah, kind of working with templates.
Okay, right on. Okay, moving on into gear. Well, have you ever used anything like really strange? Maybe just at the house, like where you're experimenting. Like, have you ever like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to put distortion all over this thing, all over this sound bowl or something. Have you ever tried?
I mean, I've played around with lots of effects on all the stuff. If you're familiar with the earlier stuff in Raw, there was a lot of exploratory effects. Oh, yeah. But with the singing bowls, yeah, I mean, I've tried a lot of different things, like using it's a plugin alliance plugin that you can really like blow out the bottom end. That blowout's not the right word, but make it so that when you hit a certain threshold, frequency wise, you can get like a sub sound underneath it.
Oh, cool.
And I was using that for a little while when I was singing, just to really fill in the sound, because it would only be like from like here down. So when I'm singing really low, it would fill it in, because sometimes I sing really low in that stuff. So I played around with that. I've probably played around with putting a light distortion on that stuff, at least at some point, because there was a time when I put, the right kind of distortion on everything.
Right.
Distortion goes on everything.
It does. Crank it up, turn it up louder. Well, back when I first started playing, I started playing in a thrash metal band. It was my very first band. We wanted to be Metallica, and so we did, and we used whatever we could afford, which wasn't much, like 25 watt solid state crate amps. And you're like, how do we make this?
I had one of those forever.
Yeah, like how do we make this loud enough to play with his drums? And you'd figure it out. You'd add extra. It was a whole, and blow things up. Blue smoke would come out of the back of stuff. It was a whole lot of fun. But our thing was hook up the old grunge pedal, the old DOD grunge pedal, and crank everything all the way up. Then, crank everything up on the crate, and then hit you're going to play a solo. Cool. They have this really cool chorus button, then hit that, but we didn't have any gate. So it just screamed at us the whole time. No amount of swelling the volume knob could fix it. And those were good old days.
Yeah, the crate practice amp. There was one of those that lived on the Raw tour bus for ages.
Dude, they were great.
I actually, just before moving to Georgia, I gave it to someone that I sold the guitar to, because they didn't have an amp.
Oh, that's how I got mine. My buddy was like, here you go. And then in the back of it, he had that stupid purple grunge pedal that he forgot it was in there. And I was like, did you want this back? He's like, nah, you can have it. And that's how 14-year-old Ryan started learning to make a lot of noise. Yeah. Piss off the old parents. I actually have a crate Blue Voodoo right there. I think that's one of the first ones where it was like half solid state, half tube. Like it's a really weird, because they had, before that, crate had the Excalibur, And it was all solid state. It was all solid state head. And that thing, I thought that was so cool as a teenager, you know. And then Doug got this as like a promo. And I was playing guitars in his garage one day, or playing amps in his garage one day, because he just got all these extra amps. You know, companies were here, try out our stuff. And I tried out this Marshall 6100 anniversary series. I remember it was purple and it was fucking phenomenal. It's the best. I still to this day, I know where it is too. Ty Tabor, I'm gonna buy it from you. But like, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Doug, can I like borrow this? He's like, no, that's Ty's. You can't borrow that. He goes, but you can borrow that one. And 23, 4 years later, I still have it. But thanks, Doug. If you want it back, it needs a tube job. Cool, man. So yeah, gear with Raw. What or I know I'm sure it's evolved over the years, but like guitar
evolved more so recently, but for many years we pretty much used the same exact setup. Like from 2002 through that 2014 tour, we used dual rectifiers. We used dual rectifiers, you know, Mesa head, Mesa cab.
Oh yeah.
For years, and we were using the Boss GT series pedals.
Okay, yeah. Well, right on. You can't go wrong there.
Yeah, and you literally use that. You know, I went through like the Boss GT3 to GT6 to GT whatever the hell I have. I think I still have them all in a suitcase in my garage.
That's awesome.
And yeah, it was just a very simple setup. But then last time we toured, we were using the Line 6 Helix.
Okay.
And
really?
Yeah, and it no amp at all on stage.
Yeah.
And all the program changes. And you know, I changed patches a freaking lot in Raw. Like every song, at least it seems like a dozen times. All the program changes were built into the system, so I didn't have to hit any buttons.
Whoa.
At first I was like, that's like 75% of my stage show.
Yeah. You're like dancing around, tapping around.
And I was like, this is gonna be weird. Awesome. Oh, wow. So cool to not hit any buttons. The only thing I had on the front of the stage was a wah pedal and a whammy pedal.
Wow. I was talking to Andy Blacksugar the other day. He plays guitar in Blondie and KMFDM. And, you know, if you can imagine KMFDM, there's sounds all over the place. And he was talking about something similar. I don't think it was the Line 6. It might have been. And I'll go back and watch the episode and correct myself on it. But he was saying something similar. Like he's just got a certain expression pedal that he uses, and he uses the tone knob and the expression pedal, but the tone knob is no longer a tone knob. It controls the expression pedal somehow.
Oh, interesting.
He plays Sully guitars, blew my fucking mind. I was like, what? And he explains it pretty cool. So when you guys were out there doing the original touring, did you use a certain type of guitar? Were you endorsed by anybody? Was there something you just loved?
Yeah, we've been with ESP guitars
that's right.
Since 2002 to present. I think they still endorse Raw. I haven't really received any guitars from them in like a decade personally. Yeah, but I have. Well, I don't have many. I actually have. That's a universe. It's a mirror image. That's a universe that I've had since I was 14.
Oh, that's so cool.
And the one right there is an S series Ibanez that I've had since I was like 12. But
nice.
They just happen to be hanging there. I've had many ESPs over the years, and most of them are totally dead and smashed. But
yeah, there's
long gone.
A couple of these are not in working order, and that's why they're always just here. You know, they've been through the stuff.
Right, they really need. Well, I think every single one of my guitars really needs a tune-up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This Razorback right here, it looks pretty, but it will not work. I mean, it needs a proper one. Not even a guitar tech knows how to fix this. So ESP, man, dude, I think you and me talked about this on an episode briefly with Brandon on Expanding Reality, but I've never had one. I've always wanted one. And I've never even played one. I played the LTDs. Now that's the Korean version. Which I hear they're like they're almost as good, if not, you know, the same. I mean, the ESPs are made in Japan, right? And then LTDs are made in Korea, but I heard that they're even better now. I have played it on an LTD, but it was in 1998, and it was cool.
Yeah, LTDs are great, and they're if you've never really played it, it's virtually identical to a Schecter.
Okay, I got a Schecter right. Well, actually, that's a Schecter, and that bass is a Schecter.
And at some point, I remember being told that the LTDs and the Schecters are even made in the same factory.
Really?
I heard that at some point, and it's a vague memory. We're talking like over a decade ago or so. So
Okay.
I don't even remember the source, but I remember hearing that. But they're really similar guitars because I remember one time we were doing a fly date and our gear never arrived. So Guitar Center literally let us borrow guitars.
Wow.
Right they let us go in and just take whatever guitar we wanted.
That's so cool. What'd you get?
Schecters, because they didn't have LTDs, and they were really similar. And I've played other people's Schecters here and there, but yeah, they are really similar.
Okay, right on. Well, like the thing I remember about the LTD I played and the Schecter I had, the guitar that I have behind me, the LTD that I played felt thicker. Like it felt in my memory.
It could have just been the model, because if you take
right.
Let me just grab one that's not on the screen. This one is, I've played Schecters that are like, I swear it's the same exact guitar.
Oh, wow. Hold on.
And I don't know Schecters, but I think this is an H series, and I must have had at least like 8 of these.
Okay.
Even 7-string versions as well, but I think it's the H series. I don't know at this point.
I see that. Let me see. Oh, is that a neck through? Bolt on? Nope, that's neck through. Yeah. Oh, that's It's got a similar vibe.
Yeah, this I've seen Schecters that like look the same and they play the same, and it's like essentially the same guitar. And I've played them and been like, this is just like the guitar I have, because I've had this one technically has only toured like twice, but I had the same exact guitar that lived on the road, and actually Sahaj loved, so we ended up swapping out guitars at one point, and he still uses that for tracking, which is
right on
this guitar, but like the 2003 or 4 model or 5 model, I don't know.
And those LTDs, they come stock with the EMG 81 and 85, probably.
I think so.
Yeah. So these come stock with the same deal. It's got the same vibe, obviously not the same shape, but I can see why they might be similar in build.
Yeah, they can be pretty different. Like, here's a guitar. I've had this one since 2002. This was one of the first ones that ESP gave me. We got a stack of them at once.
Yeah.
But I've had this guitar, and you can see I used to use it in the Hollow Glow.
Oh yeah.
But I've had this guitar since 2002, and it used to be my drop C guitar. Because
let me see your bridge.
It's an old guy.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
And it's totally dead right now and needs a soldering job.
Yeah, This one, pretty much everyone that's on display, besides the Schecter bass, because I still play that one. But yeah, pretty much everyone that's on display needs a whole lot of love. Yeah. Dude, this is so much fun. Thank you for coming on and talking gear with me.
Sure.
Not a lot of guitar players like talking about gear.
I got this guitar when I was 14. Ibanez Universe.
Oh, dude, look at the green.
Because we mostly played 7 strings, and we still do play 7 strings, except for some drop C stuff. But yeah, I've had this guitar. I'm 46, so I've had this guitar for 22 years, and you can see it's taken a little bit of a beating. It only ever toured on the first Raw tour. Other than that, I never bought it anywhere. But I played in many bars.
Yeah. It's got all the chip. It's got all the road love on it.
Scraped off the Ibanez because I was supposed to be playing ESPs. Yeah. It was I just used it as a backup guitar.
Like, you could have just put some black gaff tape over it, but you went the whole way. Scraped it right off. All in, man. I love it. That's so cool.
Well, I tried to get an endorsement for Ibanez, but they'd only give me 2 guitars, which awesome, thanks. Yeah. But we were rolling with in the first tour, I think I was rolling with, was it 6 or 8 guitars? Because we
Oh
had,
wow.
and for years, because 3 or 4 tunings and then 2 guitars for each tuning. So if you broke a string, you could just grab another guitar. And that was
Yeah.
just me. So
Yeah, right
ESP
on.
gave us lots of guitars. So
Oh,
thank
that's
you,
so
ESP.
cool. Yeah, thanks, ESP. If you want to hook up a lonely old podcast guy, you can check out my information below. The fucking dude, the what one of the things that I always wanted growing up because I was such a Metallica fan was the ESP Explorer, the one James Hetfield would play, Like I
Hmm.
just thought that thing was so cool. And I don't know if it was just because it's me. I'm just a kid in 1991 watching them come out and play I know Metallica fans, chill out. I like them through all of it, and you guys can all do whatever. But like, I watched them come out and they're doing this some song from the Black album on the Grammys, and he comes out and the lights are coming from below him and it's all green, which is my favorite color. And Headfield looks all fucking evil to me because I don't know, junior high, no, 91. So I'm in like elementary school. And I was like, look at that fucking evil looking guitar he has. It was just the black ESP Explorer, and I've loved it ever since. I just think it looks so fucking cool. I also just like Explorers, period, whether it's ESP or who was the other one that makes it, Gibson.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah,
And I don't know why it just popped in my head, but I totally misquoted the age of my guitar because the guitar is 32 years old, not 22 years old.
okay. Well,
Because that guitar is 22 years old. That one's 32 years old. Totally besides the point, but
I don't,
I felt like I need to honor my universe.
you do absolutely 100%. I wish that I still had my first guitar. Do you remember the guitar brand Hondo?
I remember, yeah.
So my first guitar was, it totally straight up looked like a Fender Strat in body and neck, but then the head was pointy.
Oh,
Like,
interesting. Yeah,
and
I vaguely remember Hondos. My first guitar was a Fender Bullet.
oh damn, all
It was
right.
basically the Fender Squire
Yeah,
before they made Fender Squires. It was like
that's
the
so
cheap
cool.
Fender Stratty guitar.
Yeah. After that, I was getting Jackson Dinkies. You remember the Jackson Dinkies? Like in the
Yeah,
Dinky
I really
reversed.
wanted one of those when I was 14, and I was trying out a bunch, but then I ended up getting the Universe.
Did you on your side of the world, did you guys have Mars Music?
I think there was one in Boston. I think that was Mars.
Probably. It was
Yeah,
big. Did you ever go?
I'm sure I did. Yeah, I went to Berkeley in Boston, and I vaguely, if it was a Mars, I vaguely remember it, but that was also,
My friend Jess lives up there, and he teaches at Berkeley. And I when
nice.
King's X went up there and we played some venue afterwards, Jess was, well, there's been a couple of times, but he's come and grabbed me, and I've been fucking drunk in Boston, man. Like stumbling around, like, where are we going next? He has a band called Drev, where it's just all electronic music. He does it all himself. He's his own Trent Reznor kind of thing, and very good stuff. But I love that town. That town's super fun. I mean, at least to visit. I don't know what it's like to live there.
Yeah, just don't drive.
Just don't drive.
Because I think the story is that they just paved the cow paths, so all the streets are like. It's
Just
not like
all
a
over
normal
the
city.
place. Um, okay, cool, man, dude. Thank you so much for coming on. And I'm going to move into the beyond section, with just kind of the ending section of our stuff. And I like to ask every guest that comes on, have you ever seen an alien, a ghost, or do you know Bigfoot?
I've never hung out with Bigfoot personally.
Okay.
Um,
All right. Damn. I'm going to meet somebody who has one day.
I have seen some strange lights in the sky,
Okay.
and
Can you
I
talk
totally
about it?
believe in aliens.
Right
I don't
on.
remember
Me
the
too.
other question.
Oh, ghosts.
Oh, ghosts. I mean, I used to watch a lot of Ghost Hunters back, 20
Yeah.
years ago.
Didn't everybody?
I totally believe in ghosts, residual energy, and then maybe even some other entities besides that, but definitely believe in residual energy sticking around and kind of like timelines overlapping a little bit, so you get that haunting kind of thing, but it's really just an overlapping
Yeah.
of timelines. Aliens, absolutely. I don't know that they are necessarily what we think they are,
Sure.
because of our version of 3D reality, I think is a very thin sliver of what's available to us. So there's more multidimensional beings than interdimensional beings, more multidimensional
Yeah.
than in our singular universe.
One of the things I was been thinking about recently is that, like, okay, so the multiverse or type of theory, but also like, well, what if they're just us from the future? Like, and they're
Yeah,
back. They're like, they no longer can breed, so they're doing all the weird, funky stuff to your butt, you know. And,
yeah, and
I
that's
mean,
what Bashar talks about, that the Elahani were created from the Greys, who were future humans who could no longer procreate. They came and took the DNA from humans and created a hybrid race, which are the Elahani, and then a whole bunch of other stuff. Which, if you're familiar with Bashar, he's very interesting. These days, whenever I go on TikTok, like every second video is Bashar, because I guess I
I
stopped.
think I know. I think I know exactly what you're talking about, but I'm going to write that down anyway, just so I can check, because I'm a recent newbie to TikTok, sort of, at least on the 13 podcast. And I find all kinds of stuff. But I made, back in the day before TikTok was called TikTok, it was called music.ly, like
Really?
musically. Yeah, swear to God. But this, somebody came in and rebranded it. But I have an account, or I have an account that's on TikTok now. That's my personal account. But like in 2017, it was like the trend on there was to like sing other people's music and like make your own like music video to it or whatever. That was like brand new. And so I'm doing a bunch of King's X songs, some Cradle of Filth songs, like just trying to be all cool. And then it just, I don't know, then it felt weird. They just didn't have regulations on it back then. So I bailed, and then it became TikTok. They rebranded. That was probably the smartest thing they ever did, because music.ly sounds stupid. I mean, so does TikTok, but and stupid in the right way, you know. Anyway, so I'm still kind of learning all there is to know about it. So I'll check him out. Well, the lights, you've seen some strange lights. Let's discuss. Can you discuss?
Yeah, I mean, just as far as seeing in physical reality, I
Right.
have I the last time I saw something, it was with my partner Janine and I.
Yeah.
I was with her. We were on the very front of the shipwrecked boat,
Oh,
um,
cool.
in the Gulf of Mexico, and at that point, I didn't drink in 2020, so we would actually. The front of the boat was reserved for just the artists, and nobody was ever there. So every night we would kind of just go up there and hang out by ourselves.
Oh, cool.
Um, and we're sitting on the front of the boat, and there was this light that just kept moving. It was moving, and it didn't do any drastic movements, but it was definitely not a star, and it
Yeah.
definitely was not a satellite. Um, so yeah, but I've seen like the CE5 videos, like the Dr. Stephen Greer
Yep.
CE5 contact stuff. Some of those are really cool. Where they flash,
Oh, yeah.
stuff like that.
I was
And
just watching him last night on Ancient Aliens.
nice. They still show that show?
Well, they started
It's season
releasing new.
412.
Yeah, they started releasing well, not new episodes, but new to Netflix. So they
Nice.
released like season 5, 6, and 7. And then,
Okay.
Mark Ollie, that came on Frequency Theorist before, he's on season 19 apparently, which just came out.
Yeah.
But
That's Ancient Aliens. That's like the gateway drug
it is
that like gets you
100%.
hooked and get into
And
the real stuff.
I got a couple. I don't have any really recent ones, but the most recent one I have was 2011 or 12. And I was driving through Texas. I was on the outskirts of Brady, Texas. So basically, everyone who doesn't know Texas geography, I'm in the middle of freaking nowhere, and it's gotten dark. It's been dark for a while, and I'm driving, and I see these lights off in a field off to my side. There's nobody around. I think maybe smartphones had just come out, or maybe I had a flip phone. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure, but I thought, I'm going to take pictures of these weird lights, because I couldn't tell if it was one craft or three or what it was. It was just lights. I got out. I go to take photos. The lights start coming towards me. I'm like,
Oh
that's
wow.
that's weird. I've seen movies like this. So I got back in my car and I start driving. I call my wife. I'm like, there's these real, she wasn't my wife at the time, my girlfriend. I was like, hey, I'm seeing some weird lights on the side. And she goes, oh, what is it? Aliens, and she's making fun. I'm like, I don't know, maybe. And then the lights start kind of going back off out into the field. And I'm like, all right. I'm going to take some photos again. So because I never got them the first time. So I get out to go do it. Well, this time it looks like there's 3 or 4 lights, but it looks like they're all together and they turn like this and they come back at me. And I'm like, motherfucker. Like, do they know? Like, am I paranoid? I'm paranoid. There's like, but they're coming straight at me. Well, I get back in the car again. I get scared. I drive a little bit more, and there's a cliff over here, or what feels like a cliff, like maybe a high hill. The thing comes around in front of me, still can't see what this is, can't see a craft, just see the lights. Then the lights kind of break off and one ends up in front of me. And then imagine if this was red, a red light comes on, but it doesn't cast any light. And then it dies off. And I'm like, this is it. This is it. This is where I am either leaving the planet. I'm going to die. I don't know. Light goes down and then they go back off this way. And I'm shaking. And I finally get to the edge of town in Brady, Texas. I mean, and this is a little bit more in depth than I've told it before, but like I get to the edge of town in Brady, Texas. I remember there's a trucker pulled over here by a state trooper and I see them flying off back into the thing. I see the town. Like, okay, if I'm going to be able to take a picture of this thing, it's going to be now. I get out to go take the picture and I swear to God, they start coming back at me. And I'm like, okay, fuck it. We're going through the town. I go through the town and I can see out in the field that they stayed out there and they followed me through the town. And I was so scared. I was driving too fast and I got pulled over and I got a speeding ticket. And because I've seen so many movies, I like the fucking cops in on it. You'd be like, what you speeding through here, boy? But he didn't. He did ask me that in almost that exact same way. But I was like, I didn't know the speed limit, sir. Sorry.
Yeah,
But
it's
anyway.
interesting the way you can kind of. That's what. So the one in the Gulf of Mexico, it was almost like we were interacting with it in some way. I don't remember specifically how, but same kind of thing. Like when you give it your attention, same thing with like the CE5 stuff. When you give it your attention, you can actually draw it in a little bit. The one I experienced was not nearly as intense as what you experienced, but it was definitely moving in such a way. And I don't remember specifically how at this point, but it was like that's what made it so weird. It was kind of like we were interacting with it in a way.
Yeah, and see, you had somebody with you. I had my wife on the phone with me making fun of me. You know, I'm like, no, serious. And at one point, when she called me back a little while later. I'd left the town of Brady, and I swear I could still see him out of the corner of my eye. But I decided I was going to not pay any attention to them anymore. She's like, "Are the aliens still following you?" And I looked over at my corner of my eye, and I just saw them way out here, kind of doing the thing. And I was like, no, they are not. I told her later when I got to San Angelo, Texas, I was like, okay, yeah, they totally were. I'm up in the hotel. I'm fucking freaked out. Like, I don't know what I've seen all these movies, but again, it was lights and there's military air bases out there all over the place. So, I mean, it could.
Yeah, but why would they be interacting with you in that way?
I don't know. The first thing I thought of is like, it's some 20-year-old with a drone and, you know, he's like,
yeah, maybe.
And a military license. He's like, oh, dude, that guy stopped. They can see me with all their awesome military gear. Let's go fuck with him.
Because also there's, you know, government crafts that are beyond secret that can do similar things, but I don't think they'd acknowledge you in any kind of way.
I would think not. Well, the thing that freaks me out the most is like them coming towards me could have totally been coincidence. It could have been part of whatever their flight path was at first. But when the thing came out in front of me and turned on I can only describe it as a light. Like, is that like one of the salt lamps you got in the back? The orange thing?
Yeah.
So
over there.
Yeah, that is the color, except it emitted no light. It was a circle. It looked like almost like a heater turned on. And it was only for a second. I didn't turn orange. My car didn't turn orange. It was just like this. And I was like, this is it. And I don't know. I don't know. Still don't know what it was. It was fucking weird though.
Yeah. And I was visited by lights as a kid. I remember very, very well. That was the very first time. And I was young. Yeah. I don't know how old. I would be taking a stab in the dark, whether I was like 5 or 8. I don't know. But I remember very, very well. And I wasn't scared in the least. But these lights came down my driveway and it just felt really comforting and just kind of came down. It was raining that night. and the lights came down the driveway. There was one on either side. They were blinking in and out at some point, and that's really all I remember. But it was, I mean, it's one of those memories that, like, it's a very vivid memory, and yeah.
That's awesome. I got Bigfoot stories, and I got all kinds of other stories too, but we'll save them for another time. Would you like to come on again at some other point?
Absolutely.
Dude, awesome. Thank you so much. And we got a frequency theorist coming up. We'll talk about that after I hit the stop record button. Dude, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a blast, and the hour went by really fast, and that must mean we had a good time.
Yeah, it must be. Thank you for having me. So cool to just hang out and talk music. I don't do that much anymore from this angle of things.
Yeah, no, dude, I love it. I love talking music, and I love talking all the new stuff, and I love talking the beyond. Ben Carroll, thank you for coming on. All the links for Ben will be below. You guys can go check them out. There's a lot, I'm sure. Definitely TikToks, guys. Y'all go check out these TikToks. They're fucking phenomenal, and they kind of make you feel like. Sometimes I'll go to YouTube or whatever, and I'll put this on when I've had a crazy day or whatever. And it's just like, okay, now I can chill. So you guys make sure you check out all the links below. Ben, thank you so much. We'll see you on the next one. Later.